What is going on? I'm here. Jason is here. We've been meaning to do more of these smaller form shorter podcasts or whatever videos on topics that come up frequently. And Jason had posted something on his Instagram timeline, which I was like, we need to talk about this because this happens all the time, and that is he put in quotations, and maybe I can share it, but somehow,
I,
but
I can just share my screen and pull it up so that people can see. Hold on. I'll do that right now. Oh, you
yeah.
disabled. Okay.
Oh, is it? Hold on.
Yeah, yeah.
But
Technology.
yeah, fucking all right.
There we go. Here, I'll get it up right now. So there's
So
the post.
this is I was like, this happens all the time, and that's why I messaged you right away. I was like, people like, it's like, oh, I'm trying to drink more water. I'm like, just grab the nearest container of water and drink it, you know? And we make it so complicated. So I was like, we got to talk about this. So what prompted, was there a client or something that,
Yeah. There's actually been a few, honestly, like especially around the holidays. People kind of start to fall out of their regular routines and habits. And then it becomes sometimes a bit of a challenge to pick those habits back up. So one of those that I found is consistently a topic of like pushback and confusion, I suppose, is hydration. And yeah, I had a client that was coming in and she was like, she's a little bit on the older side, I think in her 60s or late 60s, maybe early 70s. And she has what she deems to be psoriasis on her arms or her legs or whatever it was. And she was like, "Yeah, I need to go see a dermatologist about this because, you know, I think that I have like something's wrong with me." I'm like, "Okay, cool. Like that's fine. You can that's totally fine. You see a doctor if you feel like you need to. No harm in that." But then what I suggested was like, let's take a look at your hydration because at the end of the day, like, your skin is flaking and peeling off. It's clearly dry skin to some degree. Maybe there is something underlying that as well that's causing the dry skin. But let's just look at hydration as a whole. And we did like the in-body scan, which again, we know it's not 100% accurate, but it gives us a ballpark estimate. And it was showing her hydration was at something like 53 to 55%, if I'm remembering correctly.
yeah,
And we always recommend people to be at like between 65 and 70 at that's like a good number for a baseline. So she was about almost 20% off her hydration target. And so I was like, like this is where you should start. Like if you can, if before we even start talking about like medication for psoriasis or something like that, we need to look at how much water you're drinking. And we always suggest for women about 3 liters a day, for men probably 4 to 5 liters a day, depending on how much you're working out, how much you're sweating, all that kind of stuff. And she's like, 3 liters, like, I barely even get like 2 glasses in. I'm like, okay. So then like there's the problem, right? There's a basically a like 60% gap between where you need to be and where you are. Even if we're being very generous with the estimate and saying that she's getting 1 liter in, you're still probably a liter and a half to 2 liters off where you need to be. So, and it's totally, I think like one of the things that we kind of forget is like it's totally fine that you don't meet the gold standard of the goal every day. What you're looking for is just better, right? And that's
yeah,
kind of what I wanted to convey with
yeah,
the post. Um, like like even if you go from 3 or 4 glasses a day to like a liter and a half to 2 liters, you're finishing one of these guys every day. That's gonna make a big dent in the overall results you're getting. And that's a great start. So like let's just start there. So that's kind of what prompted the post. It's like, okay, like these you can say that the habits are hard, but then the question becomes like, what are you doing to make it easy? And if you're not doing anything, then like, okay, let's talk about that. What can we do to make it easy?
yep,
And that's kind of like the overall gist of the post and what I wanted to kind of convey with that. Because it kind of you can do this with a lot of different topics around nutrition and training and movement and lifestyle, all this kind of stuff. It's like, okay, like maybe like I live in Canada. Like if I show you outside right now, it's literally just there's snow on the ground and it's gray outside. It's like, okay, you're not going to be able to get your vitamin D and your sunlight to the same extent as someone who lives in Arizona and can go out and it's 25 degrees and sunny year round, right? But like, okay, maybe you can't get that, but what's the easiest way to start moving that in the right direction? Okay, like just because it's cloudy outside doesn't mean that the sun's not there. Okay, can you just
Yep.
go out and get a walk in for 10 minutes? That'll make you feel better than 0 minutes. That I can guarantee you that. You'll get some degree of, like vitamin D. So like these kind of easy, small like things that just move the needle in the right direction are like, something. It really frustrates me in a way because like I'm just like, okay, like we can do something about this. It's not like just because it's cloudy outside, we can't do anything about our sunlight intake. So it's like, let's just move the needle in the right direction and then build on that, as opposed to saying, this is so hard because the goal is so big that I can't possibly even get started.
Yeah. And the funny thing is, I mean, we all do it in different areas. So, I always preface saying things by like, don't judge yourself and put yourself down, because that doesn't get you moving anyway. When you start feeling either shame or guilt or self-judgment, you got to be gentle. You got to lead yourself gently. But it's like, in reality, this actually isn't hard. To label something as hard, and then if you actually break down the what is the thing, we're talking about picking up something with water and drinking it. There's nothing complicated, nothing difficult about it. But whatever words or thoughts we want to choose to describe this situation, that's going to be your reality, and that's how you're going to behave and act. And so, when you posted this, by the way, first and foremost, totally agree with you. People want to focus on all of these things when they haven't done the big rocks first. It's like, even last night I was at some event and these guys are all talking about XYZ shit I did. I'm like, bro, the first thing you need to do is just you need to lose some body fat because you're way overweight, get strong, lift some weights, and get winded once in a while. All these health problems that you're trying to talk about, medicine and this and these types of, like, can you just do these things? And I promise you, 90% or more, or maybe all of them, because it's happened time and time again, all these problems will disappear if you just do the basic, boring things. And so, just to hammer that home, is like, water is very important, and we all know that, but we don't. It's like, before you start talking about all these other things, can I check off the box of like, am I drinking enough water, eating enough protein, and being physical at some point each day before anything else? Right. So I think that's huge. And then you can talk about, okay, what are the easy things to make it? I made a post a few weeks back, maybe it was a couple months, I don't know, but it was on my Instagram, and I was like, the magical thing that got me to drink more water, because yeah, you can forget, you're busy, you're doing stuff, blah. Uh, a straw. So like, I noticed like, if I have a 40-ounce thing of water you got there, but it has a straw, even that one piece of friction removed allowed me to drink more water. And so, rather than, it sounds so silly, well, I gotta take the cap off and then blah blah blah. But just, you got a straw, you're drinking it, it makes a difference. So I always talk about like removing friction points as much as possible.
Yep, that's for sure. And I think that you can just keep applying that to the other areas of the goal you're trying to achieve, right? Like whether it's okay, I can't get my steps in, it's like okay, like just put your shoes at the door so you don't have to bring them to the door. Whatever. Where you're like, I think this is like um they talked about this in the Atomic Habits book, right? Just making things like right in front of your face, in the sense of like, okay, like you're not gonna skip your workout if your clothes are out, or if you have a yoga mat already out beside your bed, or whatever the case may be, whatever the thing is that removes that bit of friction, is kind of like the obvious small things that add up
Yeah.
and try and get you there. Yeah, for sure, for sure.
Yeah, even like you mentioned, if for flavor and taste, add some electrolytes to it. And there's so many like things you can add to water now. The Mios, the
Yep.
crystal lights, the elements, electrolyte packets. and all this kind of stuff, and it makes a huge difference. And I have this thing that I call the friction index, and I'm like, if I want to accomplish something, I want to remove as much friction as possible, any and all kind of friction, right? And so, and especially if you're trying to lose weight and you're trying to reduce your calories, having flavored water makes a big difference, you know?
Well,
So
yeah, like I mean, if you're having flavored water as opposed to like a calorie dense drink like pop or something like that, like you're gonna move the needle
big time.
significantly in the right direction, right? And that's what we're looking for. We're looking for those small wins that kind of add up over a longer period of time.
And along the lines of, I've had this particular example many times where I'll talk to somebody like, I need you to drink more water. This is silly. You're barely drinking 2 cups of water a day. How is your electrical system? You
Yeah.
realize that, right? Like, you're an electrical system. You are composed almost entirely. Everything needs the water, and you're drinking 2 glasses a day. And people would be like, oh, they're like, okay, they start thinking about, I got to get this like perfect water bottle. I got to figure out how to do this. And I'm like, all right, so this giant problem that you're creating, I'm like, do you have a container of water near you anywhere? I'm like, pick it up, drink it. The problem no longer exists. You
Yeah.
accomplished the goal. And so that came from this book by Steve Chandler called Straight Line Thinking or Straight Line Leadership. But he goes, we create these circular ways of thinking and we never get anywhere. And straight line thinking just looks at what is the necessary required actions from where I am and what I want. And in the case of drinking more water, the necessary required action is picking up a container of water and drinking it. That's the
Yep.
only thing. And so, that reminded me of that. But yeah, and it applies to everything, like especially when it comes to health and fitness, but just and I'm reminding myself of this as well as far as business goes. I need to just do the most simple, most basic things. I don't need to think about what's the perfect AI note-taking software, what's the
Right.
perfect editing what's the perfect edit, what's the perfect no. What do I need to do? I need to get this piece of information and I need to share it on this platform. So,
Um,
yeah,
I
man.
just wanted to touch really quickly on like the fat loss aspect of this. I think we're probably going to wrap up in a couple minutes, but yeah, let's just talk just real quick about like why water is so important for the fat loss as a whole. Because I think that some people kind of miss this in their like I think it and I think this is on us as coaches to educate people on like how the atoms of fat actually leave the body. There's really only a couple ways, right? You can poop it out, you can pee it out, and you breathe it out, and you sweat it out. That's it. And all of those processes require water. So without water to keep everything moving, um, the fat loss doesn't happen at the same rate. So by drinking more water, you're allowing these processes to happen. Do you agree? Like, I don't think I'm saying anything too out of the ordinary here. But I think it's something that we just miss. Like it's something that coaches miss in terms of educating their people. It's like, oh, just drink your water. But like I think some people do need the why. And the why is like the fat loss and even muscle gain and function of performance, they happen as a result of having your muscle saturated with water and then using that water to pick up the fat molecules. They bind to the water and they leave your body, whether it's through your breath,
Yeah.
whether it's through the waste products, or whether it's through sweat, right? And all of these things can't happen if you're underhydrated. Um, I
Yeah.
just wanted to
Uh,
quickly touch on that so that people understand the whole point of this in the first place, why I shared this post.
yeah. I have notes on that somewhere actually, and I'm not gonna find them right now. But long
Yep.
story short, 100%. Like the majority of if you like, that's why I think it's so great. You always ask like, what am I doing and why am I doing it?
Right.
Like the whole purpose of this is so that I look better, I feel better. And what do I need to happen in order for that to take place? I need body fat to leave my body. Okay, what are the things that need to happen in the calorie deficit, physical activity? but all of the chemistry requires water.
Right.
All the chemistry requires water, requires minerals and vitamins, and so it requires protein. Without getting too like, if somebody's really interested, you can YouTube. There's awesome, really wonderful chemistry videos breaking this stuff down in an easy to understand way. And it's cool to see because you can measure it. You can actually measure how many grams of carbon atoms are leaving through your breath, and that's the main place where fat leaves the body is
There you go.
through the respiration process. But yeah, it seems it's just like that you bring up a very good point. We all talk about it, and coaches say it, and people know it, but we don't understand the impact and the weight that this water actually has, being hydrated actually has. I guarantee you most people, they're not drinking enough water and they're doing things that are hydrating them all the time, and they just there's this constant low level feeling of like shittiness. And if you can just add the piece of, let me drink 3 4 liters of water a day, let me add some salt, some electrolytes, and let's see how you're guaranteed, if you do nothing else, you're going to feel so much better. You're going to feel tremendous. And Dan John is, if you've heard anything that I've talked about, I always mention Dan John. He's one of the legendary strength coaches, big influence on me from back in the day. um but I remember he used to have this list of like, if you want to build muscle, or his top 10 like rules. One of them was, the greatest anabolic is water. The
There
greatest
you go.
anabolic supplement is water. And, so for those people who are like, I want to be jacked, I want to be strong and muscular, you're not drinking enough water. What are you even doing? Might as well not even.
Yeah. I think like people, it goes into like the creatine thing as well. What are you doing your creatine for to put water into your muscle? Like I don't have enough water to begin with. That's going to be a
Yeah.
problem for the creatine to work as it needs to. But that's another topic for another time. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, if we're talking about getting more size into the muscle, having enough water in there so that it's saturated is a big part of it.
Yeah.
And it's easy to forget. So yeah, I mean, we're gonna keep talking about these kind of topics because this is the basic stuff that like if you're not doing this, all the other biohacking kind of crap doesn't really matter. And I say crap. Some of the stuff is actually it'll work and it'll do some good stuff for you. But again, if you're not doing these baseline things of like protein, water, making sure you're sleeping, you know, according to what the demands of your body and lifestyle are, it's
Yeah.
not gonna do much to do all that other stuff.
It's the classic cart before the horse type thing.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, it's a lot of these other things. If you're doing the basics, cool, have at it. But you'll find that you don't need them all. You don't need most of them. And I think so. Yeah, we're gonna keep having these shorter conversations as questions and common themes arise in our day-to-day work with clients. So I look forward to that. But takeaway, water is very important. Make sure you get it and make it as simple as possible. And if you need, and make it enjoyable.
There you go. Done.